This is TWiT.
Nvidia. We are enjoying a wonderful stock market uptick, not thanks to Donald Trump, even though he'd like to take credit for it, really more thanks to Jensen Huang and Nvidia. But maybe it's an AI bubble entirely. Alex, what do you, and I'm interested to hear you say software as well as hardware, because I mean, Nvidia is clearly the company that's selling a lot of hardware, not just for video gaming and crypto mining, but also for autonomous vehicles and obviously for AI.
Yeah, so it's an unbelievable story. First of all, they're up 60-something% on the year in the stock market. They've added $700 billion in market cap. They added $277 billion on Thursday alone, which is the largest single increase in stock market history of any company. And the thing that's so interesting here is that Nvidia is able to do this. It's increased its sales by 900% since last year, and its earnings are way up. You look at data center revenue alone, they've went from $3 billion to $18 billion in a year. That's insane. And they're doing this while you have competition from companies like Intel and AMD and from the tech giants themselves that are developing their own chips. Yet, they're still able to accelerate this way. And that puzzled me because, and I'll admit it right here, one of my big predictions for 2024 was that Nvidia stock would be flat. So obviously the worst prediction of my life. But I based that prediction off of the idea that these competitors would eventually catch up. It's hardware, right? So I dug a little deeper this week and found out that it's actually not just hardware. And the advantage that Nvidia has is that they don't just sell these chips, these H100 chips that go from $20,000 to $40,000, is that they sell a combination of the chips and the software. And the software is used to train these AI models, and so they are so far ahead of everyone because anyone building an LLM right now, anyone with an AI division, they're both relying on the chips and the software. It's difficult to use. And for the competitors to come in, they have to basically create a product that's orders of magnitude better than Nvidia. And they just haven't yet. And so that's why when we look at the growth here, it seems crazy. It does seem like a bubble. I understand why people are saying bubble, but there might be some real serious competitive advantages that Nvidia has. And I think it starts and ends with the fact that they have both the chip and the software. It's not usually how it goes.
It gives them a moat against competition. $277 billion pop on one day is the largest
in a day in
history. No stock has ever jumped that much. 265%.
I mean, most stocks would dream to have that market cap alone as their valuation.
And Jensen Huang started it all with $200 and a dream. It's kind of an amazing story. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that Alex's prior prediction that it was a bubble, that it would start to decline was that's been the consensus, the conventional wisdom in Silicon Valley for 6 months or so. It felt very bubble-esque. But as Alex is finding out, looking into the details, there's a lot more behind it, and this is a really impressive company. They're right in the perfect spot for everything that's happening and about to happen. They're going to be a huge player in autonomous vehicles. They're a huge player in all kinds of things that everybody's doing, and they're going to be. People talk about the AI revolution, and we're probably going to be talking later about how ChatGPT is kind of flatlining, but that's just because of the competition of all these companies that almost all of them, I assume, are as Alex says, relying on Nvidia.
And the big caveat here is that this is only going to work if companies see widespread profitable uses of generative AI. And most of Nvidia's data center revenue is coming from people training models. So we're still in the find out stage, or whether there's an ROI here. They said on their earnings call that 40% of their revenue is inference, which means actually deploying the model, which is actually quite a large number. But that 60% really needs to pay off for them to be able to continue on this run. So that's the big unknown. It's the big caveat, is whether companies across the economy will be able to find profitable and widespread uses of generative AI, especially. Now they're going to have places like healthcare and automotive, totally, where that's going to continue to accelerate, no matter whether we want to talk to ChatGPT or not. Or use GPT models. But the big question mark again is, is this stuff going to work?
Alex, so do you have any doubt that the generative AI will be massively successful, profitable, and a major component of just about every business tool that we use?
I don't have that much doubt, but the scale is the real question, right? So
Yeah.
I think when ChatGPT came out, people started to think of like all these different uses. Is the chatbot going to be the new operating system? Is all computing going to be chat? Is this, the new Windows? That hasn't panned out. Like you mentioned, the data that I found shows that ChatGPT has leveled off. But then, of course, enterprise always tends to save the day. And enterprises are finding major use cases for this stuff. I spoke with ServiceNow, which designs workflows and does customer support for different companies. And they say that, they have between hundreds and thousands of these Nvidia GPUs, and that they are easily profitable in terms of their spend with their generative AI capabilities, because customers are paying for it. Microsoft, for instance, is charging people $30 a seat extra to have Copilot in Office. So like this, it seems to me like this is going to work, but we'll see. I still think it's an open question of the magnitude.
The obsession with I'm sorry, Janko. Just one final point. The obsession with ChatGPT and chat as it relates to generative AI is just an artifact of the fact that this is what the public is touching. It's not. Right. It's not going to be the thing that drives generative AI into the stratosphere.
I just find it amazing that even with like the stock popping and everything, I think the market valuation is now $2 trillion. About, is that right?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
1.97 trillion.
Yeah. And when I heard that, I had to think back about this story from a couple of weeks ago when Sam Altman supposedly said that he wants to raise $7 trillion just in venture capital to make chips to potentially take on Nvidia, which seems crazy, right? So maybe this is only the beginning of the bubble that we're at yet.
If you believe in the wisdom of crowds, you have to think, well, maybe there is something to this AI thing. But we've seen enough stock market bubbles to know that sometimes it's just, conventional wisdom, not the wisdom of the crowds. Is the jury still out, to your point, Mike, on AI? Is this where are we on the Gartner hype cycle? Is this a flash in the pan? We've been through many AI winners, more than one, over the last 50 years. Or has AI already turned the corner in usefulness and we now know, no, this is the real deal? What do you think, Alex?
Go ahead, Alex.
I wrote a story in 2015 talking about how we were, or 2016, talking about how we were in an AI bubble, because if you remember, there was some serious advances in computer vision, natural language processing, and every company became an AI company then.
Right.
What I missed was that was just a point on the distribution, right? And in fact, AI has been in development for decades and is a very real technology that's embedded in all technology that we use today. And it's sort of interesting. We call it AI when it's in development, and then when it works, we just call it software. And so this is very different from the Web3 hype, which, who knows, we might see
the
some blockchain application.
Hype. Yeah.
The crypto hype, exactly, where that was a flash in the pan. This has had ups and downs for sure over time, but it's building. And as you hear them talk about the history, and Brian Cannizzaro, who's the VP of Applied Machine Learning from Nvidia that I spoke with, talked about how 5-6 years ago they were having people coming in and saying, we want to build these large language model bots, but the computation wasn't quite there yet. So this is definitely not a flash in the pan. From my perspective, we are seeing clear applicable uses of AI. And the big question is like generative AI, where that goes, right? But I do think that we're going to see it. And I saw someone like post like an image of his garden, a grid of his garden that he wanted to plant, and he dropped it in ChatGPT and said like, the carrots are here, and the celeries are here. Tell me some problems and some opportunities that I have in my garden. And ChatGPT gives a detailed breakdown of like the best gardening tips for this. This stuff is amazing that this is so accessible to people. And someone who saw that tweet was like, listen, this is the worst that AI will ever be in our lives, which is crazy. Think about how much more we have to go and how early we are here, seeing like the full range of applications. So the optimist in me says this is going to be quite big, and the realist in me says, it will be big, but let's just see how big, because it is easy to get caught up on the hype. Things tend to get built when there's clear returns on investment by the people that are building them, and it's very, very expensive to build and deploy. So I'm holding my breath a little bit on that front.
Hey, thank you for watching this little snippet from our big show, the News Roundtable This Week in Tech. I'm Leo Laporte. Each week we cover the week's tech news, in-depth analysis, but it's also fun and engaging. You'll find it at twit.tv along with all of our shows. And if you want more, just hit the subscribe button, and we'll be sure to bring you a lot more great content. Thanks for listening.